Ladies and gentlemen, after 2 years, Jon Gruden is finally having his showdown against Roger Goodell and the NFL live on TV.
Gruden has told associates of his that Goodell ordered a kill shot to his career, that he took him out. And the language that was used is he's willing to burn the house down to get to the truth of what happened.
Curious, what's Gruden up to these days?
He's fired up about ball, but I think he's in a good spot right now. He's almost, done with whatever the thing going on. And
on January 10th, 2024, we finally find out whether Gruden makes his triumphant return to the NFL or even the Raiders. After almost 2 years of delaying Gruden's lawsuit, we finally get proof of the leaker. Goodell just signed a new contract as commissioner, but Gruden might end up ending Goodell's career. How perfect would that be? Plus, the judge who previously ruled in Gruden's favor last year has mysteriously decided to retire the day after this hearing. That's sketchy as hell. All this and more will be discussed, so make sure you subscribe to this channel. And by the way, we will definitely be going live during that hearing. So we know Jon Gruden's emails were leaked in October 2021, and afterwards he filed a lawsuit against the NFL and Roger Goodell, claiming that they were behind the leaks, claiming that they assassinated his character and ended his career. A year later in 2022, Jon Gruden had some success in Nevada District Court with Judge Nancy Elf as she denied the NFL's push to arbitration. They were basically trying to have Roger Goodell and the NFL decide their own punishment for leaking Jon Gruden's emails. Not only did this great Judge Nancy Elf deny their request to push this to arbitration, but she also denied 2 attempts by the NFL to dismiss the case altogether. Needless to say, the NFL is probably not too hot on this lady, but I am. So things were heading in the right direction for Jon Gruden, but then the NFL filed an appeal of Judge Nancy Elf's decision, and then earlier this year, the Nevada Supreme Court granted Goodell and the NFL a stay, meaning they would hold off any discovery while the NFL went through with their appeal. Unfortunately for Jon Gruden, the fact that the Nevada Supreme Court granted the NFL a stay means that they think there's some validity to the NFL lawyer's argument to move this case to arbitration. We now know Jon Gruden is seeking the balance of his 10-year, $100 million contract from 2018 with the Raiders, minus an undisclosed settlement with Mark Davis. And that is something very important to keep note of, the fact that Mark Davis never wanted to get rid of this guy, never wanted to let him go.
Basically, what I had said initially was that, ask the NFL, they've got all the answers. We really don't.
He previously said that it felt like a setup, and ultimately, Roger Goodell and the NFL pressured him into forcing Jon Gruden to resign. And it is quite odd that we do not know exactly what Mark Davis and Jon Gruden settled for. It seems like Jon Gruden and Mark Davis are still on good terms, and if there is a possibility for Gruden to return to the NFL, many around the league believe that Mark Davis would be stoked to get Jon Gruden back, especially since he's recently kicked Josh McDaniels to the curb. We'll talk more about that in a second. The NFL, Roger Goodell and Jon Gruden were supposed to have their big showdown in November, but the NFL and Goodell were successfully able to postpone this date, and now it is going down January 10th, 2024, live on TV. There will be some upcoming oral arguments in front of the Nevada Supreme Court, and this will either lift the stay, meaning this case could go to discovery, or move the case to NFL's arbitration, in Mike Florio's words, a secret kangaroo rigged court. And that's what it will be, man. If this goes to arbitration, it'll be freaking sad. It'll be disgusting. It will mean that Goodell gets to decide his own freaking punishment, and they will be able to hide who leaked the emails. So when this goes down January 10th, there will be 3 judges presiding over this, and it will take a few months after oral arguments for the Supreme Court to draft and publish their opinions. The Nevada Supreme Justice panel is all women, all 3 women, but keep in mind Nancy Elf, a woman, ruled in Jon Gruden's favor, and people try to act like he said such misogynistic things in the emails. All they have, and you could look this up, all they have is that somebody sent him a meme of a woman ref, and he just responded and Gruden said, "Good one, Goodell." I've heard way more misogynistic things from other people and other active people in the NFL right now. So Nancy Elf, the one who earlier ruled in Gruden's favor, oddly enough, is scheduled to retire the day after the oral arguments. They say there's no connection, but I'm not gonna lie, man, this kind of trips me out. Funny thing about Nancy Elf is her dad was an FBI agent who helped bring down the mob and organized crime in the 70s. Who knows? Maybe she's dealing with the real mob or Roger Goodell in the NFL, and maybe that's pushing her into retirement. There's no way that's the case, right? Because Elf did rule in Gruden's favor previously, a Nevada lawyer, Alex Velto, claims that Gruden is in a better position considering his win in district court, but we should be wary of the NFL's strong and potentially decisive arbitration language. The NFL is also simultaneously trying to use this same arbitration language in their bylaws against Coach Brian Flores, who is currently suing them for racial discrimination. The NFL is pretty much trying to use the same argument against Brian Flores and Jon Gruden, which is that these cases should not be hashed out in court and it should be hashed out behind closed doors by the NFL. It should all definitely be done in secret and it should definitely be rigged. And the NFL, even though they take tons of tax dollars for their stadiums all around the country, they should not be accountable to the public at all. So this is their argument. The fact that they've been able to pause the case means that they might be able to have some success here, they being the NFL. What's going to be amazing though is that the public is going to see this. We're going to see Jon Gruden back live on TV since the Nevada Supreme Court did allow 3 TV stations in Vegas to broadcast this event. And man, I'm going to be tuning in. I'm going to be doing live updates. I'm going to try to get a video feed and maybe I got to get a VPN or something. Just to recap some more details in a nutshell, the NFL alleges that the emails trigger the conduct detrimental language in the NFL Constitution and bylaws. The Nevada Supreme Court thinks they have an argument that's potentially sound. However, Gruden's lawyers allege that the NFL did not punish Gruden for the emails or even officially deem them conduct detrimental. Keep in mind, and this was a big thing for Nancy Elf earlier, Gruden was not employed by the NFL when he wrote these emails. He was employed by ESPN. And she was so not convinced by the NFL's arguments that she ruled from the bench. She did not even have to go back in the office and figure it out. She was like, no, this is done. But there are going to be some curveballs that the NFL is going to throw at Jon Gruden. Keep in mind, Gruden went out there and helped out one of my favorite quarterbacks ever, Derek Carr of the New Orleans Saints. So Gruden working with Carr and the Saints, it could hurt Gruden's case since it shows that his reputation was not super severely damaged and that he can still do things like consult around the NFL. However, keep in mind, Jon Gruden was not paid for that consultation with the Saints and Derek Carr. He did that for free and he likely did do it for free to make sure that it did not mess up his case. We've heard from Dan Van Natta and tons of people around the NFL that Jon Gruden, he wants to find out who did this and he wants justice to be served. And he has said before that he is out for blood and he will not settle for any amount of money.
And Gruden has told people that he will burn the house down. He'll burn the NFL down to get the truth.
In my opinion, the fact that he's able to say these comments, make these threats, make these demands, this tells me that he thinks he has some serious leverage here, even though the NFL was able to pause the case for some time. We don't know the exact amount of money that Jon Gruden is suing for, but we can guess and we can estimate that it's roughly $60 million. That is the remaining balance of his contract of the Raiders that was not paid out. We also have to take the Mark Davis settlement into account, but we don't know the exact value of that. However, if Gruden succeeds in front of the Nevada Supreme Court on January 10th, then the NFL is going to have to throw a lot more money at him to convince him to settle and basically keep this out of court and keep the leaker's identity unknown, who seems to be quite possibly the guy who was called a in the emails by Jon Gruden and an anti-football in the emails by Jon Gruden. Roger Goodell, in case you didn't get that. So this brings me to the Raiders, and this brings me to coaching. I keep hearing these rumors about Jon Gruden maybe wanting to get the head coaching Indiana job because he has some connections there. In my opinion, I just do not see Jon Gruden settling for that. I don't see him doing that when you have so many head coaching positions that are going to be open this year in the NFL, and you have a lot of candidates out there. There are none of them that have the resume of Jon Gruden. You can be somebody who doesn't like Jon Gruden. Maybe you don't think he's successful. Maybe you think he's whack. But at the end of of the day, when you look around the NFL, he has the best resume of any head coach looking for a position. We already talked about Mark Davis's connection to Jon Gruden, the fact that he reveres Jon Gruden, the fact that he never wanted to let Jon Gruden go. That's a big deal considering the fact that Vegas is wide open looking for a new head coach. People say, oh, well, the roster's changed so much since Jon Gruden, the Raiders roster. Well, when you look around that team, just off the top of my mother effing head, I'm able to think of several players that Jon Gruden drafted, from Trayvon Merrick, Divine Diablo, Nate Hobbs, Max Crosby, Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, Amik Robertson, who's now been blowing up, and also Malcolm Kuntz, a depth edge rusher, and several other players on that team. I even forgot about first-round pick Colton Miller, the left tackle. See? It's off the top of the head. Boom. Just remembered Andre James, the center. He was undrafted and then got a fat contract. If you can think of any more, let me know in the comments below. So we know what this is all about though, right? Jon Gruden wants his life back. He wants to coach in the NFL again. The dude's already rich. Even if he doesn't win any money from the NFL, he's gonna live rich. He's gonna be perfectly fine. His kids are gonna be fine. We know Warren Sapp, one of Jon Gruden's really good friends, says that Gruden is still doing the grind, studying tape all day, doing the same preparation as if he was a head coach.
You know, he's just sitting there watching the tape, being extra critical more than anything I've ever seen. He's fired up about ball, but I think he's in a good spot right now. He's almost, you know, done with whatever the thing going on. And
so I believe, and this is just my opinion, but just reading between the lines here, that if Gruden has some success in Nevada Supreme Court, if the NFL really wants him to settle, they can try to throw all kinds of money, but ultimately he wants to have his life back and be a head coach in the NFL again, and have some assurance that he will not be canceled again unfairly, and he will not be forced to resign again unfairly. And what better place to give him a shot than a fan base and an owner who's already used to the guy, already knows the guy, and a franchise that has honestly also already given him a ton of money. The timing of Gruden being hired before the 2024 season could be an issue, because we know that teams could start interviewing coaches in late January, early February. And we also know that the Nevada Supreme Court will take a few months to make their decision after hearing these oral arguments on January 10th. However, if the NFL reaches out to Gruden and tries to get him to settle, then I think anything is possible and the timing will not be an issue. Like I said, we will be live giving updates during this hearing January 10th, and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss it. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you want Jon Gruden to return to the Raiders? Do you think he's going to have some success here against the NFL, or should he? And if the Saints ever want to move on from Derek Carr and Jon Gruden becomes head coach of the Raiders, you know my guy DC is coming back. My name is Wi-Fi Willie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.